When a valet dismisses an elderly woman driving a beat-up car, he thinks nothing of it, until hours later, she returns in a gleaming Ferrari that leaves him stunned. The stark contrast between her arrival and departure reveals a humbling truth that shakes him to his core. Who is this mysterious woman, and what lesson is she about to teach him? The shocking twist will challenge everything he thought he knew about appearances and value. Stay until the end to uncover the powerful message behind this unforgettable encounter. But before we dive in, leave a comment and let us know where you are watching from today. And if this story speaks to you, hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories. The grand entrance of the Belmont Hotel was a parade of wealth and luxury. A procession of sleek cars, Mercedes, Bentleys, and Lamborghinis, lined the valet stand, their engines purring like contented cats. Guests stepped out in designer suits and evening gowns, their polished appearances reflecting the opulence of the hotel itself. At the valet station, Jason, a young attendant in his early 20s, leaned casually against the podium. His sharp uniform and slicked-back hair gave him the air of someone who thought he was destined for greater things. He had a habit of sizing up the cars and their owners, silently judging who deserved respect and who didn't. He considered himself good at reading people, and tonight was no exception. Jason was still admiring the polished chrome of a Rolls-Royce when a loud, rattling sound drew his attention. Slowly, the noise grew louder until an old, dented sedan sputtered into the driveway. The car looked out of place among the high-end vehicles surrounding it. Its muffler wheezed like it was taking its last breath, and one of its headlights was clouded with age. The car's faded paint and duct-taped side mirror made Jason grimace. Behind the wheel sat an elderly woman. Her silver hair was neatly styled, tucked under a wide-brimmed hat, and her glasses perched slightly crooked on her nose. Her clothing was simple but well-kept, and her demeanor was calm. She pulled the car to a halt in front of Jason, smiling warmly as she rolled down the window. "Good evening, young man," she said, her voice kind and steady. "Could you please park my car for me?" Jason hesitated. He was used to catering to the wealthy elite, and this woman didn't fit the profile. He glanced at the sedan, the peeling paint reflecting the neon lights of the hotel's grand entrance. He couldn't help but smirk. Ma'am," Jason began, his tone laced with feigned politeness, "are you sure you're at the right place? This is the Belmont Hotel." The woman's smile faltered for a moment but returned just as quickly. "Yes, I'm certain," she replied, extending the keys toward him. "I'm meeting someone inside." Jason looked at the keys in her outstretched hand, then back at the beat-up car. He sighed. "We, have limited parking spaces, mostly reserved for higher-end vehicles," he said, barely concealing his disdain. "I can't guarantee your car will be safe here." The woman tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "I see," she said softly. She pulled the keys back and added, "Well, I'll manage." Without another word, she shifted the car into gear and drove off to park along the street. Jason watched her go, shaking his head in amusement. "Some people don't know when they're out of their league," he muttered under his breath, turning back to the next guest arriving in a shiny Aston Martin. While Jason continued to busy himself with more worthy vehicles, the elderly woman entered the Belmont's grand lobby. Despite her understated appearance, she moved with a quiet grace, her posture upright and confident. She approached the front desk, where the receptionist greeted her with genuine warmth. "Mrs. Sterling, it's wonderful to see you again," the receptionist said. "Thank you, dear," the woman replied. "I believe I'm expected in the private dining room?" "Of course," the receptionist said, signaling a bellhop to escort her. Mrs. Sterling followed the bellhop, disappearing behind the ornate doors of an exclusive dining area. While Jason and the rest of the valet team remained oblivious, the hotel staff treated her with the utmost respect, recognizing her as one of the Belmont's most distinguished patrons. As the evening wore on, Jason continued to revel in the glamour of the cars passing through the valet stand. He prided himself on his ability to charm the wealthiest clients, collecting generous tips and occasional compliments on his efficiency. By now, he had forgotten all about the elderly woman and her battered sedan. It wasn't until hours later, as the night began to wind down, that the familiar hum of a powerful engine caught his attention. Jason turned toward the driveway, his jaw dropping at the sight of a sleek, black Ferrari gliding into the entrance. Its glossy exterior shimmered under the hotel's golden lights, and its low, throaty growl commanded attention. Jason straightened his posture, smoothing down his uniform. This was the type of guest he wanted to impress. As the Ferrari came to a gentle stop, Jason approached it eagerly, already imagining the generous tip he might receive. But as the driver's door opened, Jason's confidence wavered. Out stepped the elderly woman he had dismissed earlier. "Good evening, young man," Mrs. Sterling said with a faint smile. She extended a crisp $50 bill toward him. "For your troubles earlier." Jason was speechless. The woman he had brushed off so casually now stood before him, radiating the same quiet elegance but with an undeniable air of authority. He couldn't reconcile the beat-up sedan with the luxurious Ferrari now before him. "Ma'am, is this your car?" he stammered. "Of course," she replied lightly, her smile widening. "Why wouldn't it be?" Jason struggled to find the right words. "But earlier, the sedan." "I mean," Mrs. Sterling tilted her head slightly, her expression one of mild amusement. "Let's just say I have a taste for variety," she said. "And not everything valuable shines at first glance." Her words struck Jason like a bolt of lightning. He felt his cheeks flush as he realized how foolish and judgmental he had been. Mrs. Sterling, however, seemed unfazed. She handed the keys to another valet, who eagerly parked the Ferrari without hesitation. As Mrs. Sterling disappeared into the hotel once more, Jason stood rooted to the spot, his thoughts racing. Who was this woman, and why had she chosen to arrive in such an unassuming car earlier? His curiosity only deepened when he overheard the hotel manager speaking with another staff member. "She's Eleanor Sterling," the manager said in a hushed tone. "One of the wealthiest philanthropists in the city. She's a regular here, though you'd never know it by the way she carries herself." Jason's stomach dropped. He had dismissed one of the Belmont's most important guests simply because of the car she had arrived in. The embarrassment was almost too much to bear. The following week, Jason arrived at work to find an envelope waiting for him at the valet station. It was addressed to him in elegant handwriting. With shaking hands, he opened it to find a handwritten note. "Dear Jason, life often surprises us, doesn't it? Our first impressions can sometimes blind us to what truly matters. I hope our encounter helped you see that value isn't always visible at first glance. To that end, I'd like to offer you an opportunity. Attached is a ticket to a networking event hosted by my foundation. It's a chance to meet people from all walks of life and learn the true meaning of success. I hope you'll attend. Warm regards, Eleanor Sterling." Jason stared at the note, his hands trembling. Attached was an invitation to an exclusive event hosted by Mrs. Sterling's philanthropic organization. The weight of her kindness and generosity left him speechless. Determined to make the most of the opportunity, Jason attended the event. There he met individuals who had risen from humble beginnings to achieve great success, not because of wealth or status but because of their integrity and determination. Inspired by their stories, Jason vowed to change his outlook. Back at the Belmont, Jason's behavior toward guests transformed. He treated every customer with genuine respect, regardless of their car or appearance. His colleagues noticed the shift, and over time, he became known for his professionalism and kindness. Years later, Jason stood at the helm of his own business, a luxury concierge service. Hanging in his office was the note from Eleanor Sterling, a constant reminder of the lesson that had shaped his life. As for Eleanor Sterling, she continued to frequent the Belmont, always arriving in whichever car suited her mood. But for Jason, her lesson endured long after her visits. He had learned that value isn't always obvious, and true success lies in how we treat others. And every time he greeted a guest, he remembered her words, "Not everything valuable shines at first glance."